where I feel like God is faithful. Listen, just I'm going to use your gift. I'm going to do it. You don't have to like neglect your family to make your gift matter. I'm going to provide the opportunities, and He's done that at literally every step along the way.
Hey, what's up? What's up, my mama friend? We are back with Sarah Humphrey and Emily Little on the show today. They are the power duo mom team behind the book 40 Days to a Joyful Motherhood. Sarah's the author and Emily's the artist. And in last week's episode, they shared how they've been able to reframe past guilt and failures into big victories, which has really paved the way for them to approach motherhood in a really empowering way. They also shared how God evolved them into new callings and then equipped them along the way. In part 2 of this conversation, they're going to share how they've been able to navigate doubts and crises of faith, along with how they practice self-care as a way to preserve their identity not just as moms, but who they were before moms. Before we get into it, don't forget we are giving away 2 copies of 40 Days to a Joyful Motherhood. So go to joyful.momscribecoffee.com to enter. That's joyful.momscribecoffee.com. All right, friend, let's get into it. It is my pleasure to welcome back Sarah and Emily. Now let's talk about the faith journey as a whole. I think many of us run into seasons of doubt, or maybe, yesterday felt doubtful, today feels really encouraging. When you run into those doubtful moments where you're questioning, well, God, are you truly who you say you are? Or God, I'm having a really hard time trusting you right now. Sarah, you called it a crisis of faith in the book. Do your methods of making sure you are living by the Lord's hand, do those methods change, or do you amplify them in some way? What do you do?
I think for me, I have to have equal amount of time alone and equal amount of time with people. Because if I spend too much time alone, especially for me, when I was writing this the first time, during that postpartum season, we really didn't have much community. We had just moved here. We were trying to get plugged into a church and we couldn't. We didn't really have many people in our neighborhood that were out and about. And so a lot of times I felt alone. And so sometimes that crisis of faith comes where you're like, there's nobody else speaking into this, like in the sense of a girlfriend, like to go for a walk or, another. And I'm saying that in particular, like with females, because I feel like in the motherhood journey, of course, we can go to our spouses and ask for help, or they're obviously our number one, connection and a best friend. But there's a camaraderie among women who have also had children come out of their bodies and have gone through all the hormonal changes and all of that, in the motherhood transition. And so I think for me during that time, the writing became a real gift because I was able to process those feelings out. Even though there wasn't a girlfriend right there, I could at least write it in a journal. And Jesus was there, But then as my kids got older, I was like, whew, I got to get out of this house. We need to go to the park. We need to go to the zoo or wherever. And I ended up making so many friends of, other moms because I kept seeing them at the park because they were doing the same exact thing I was doing. It was like, right. I've got to get out of the house. I've got to see somebody. I'm struggling today. I need to see another face, that's an adult. Because that's being with kids that are young when you're only communicating in child language, or being the sole provider throughout the whole day. It's like, wow, because, I need to talk to somebody who's my age, because even our husbands or, spouses, when they go to work, they're at home with the kids in the evening, but during the day, they're typically with a wide range of adults who can communicate and can express themselves. And I think, we were talking before we started the podcast about how difficult it can be when the kids are young and they just cry. And so you're constantly troubleshooting to figure out, well, is it this, or is it that, or is it this? And I feel like because as moms, we're dealing with that, we also then feel that way ourselves. Like, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. And I'm struggling all of a sudden. And I don't know what to express, or I don't even know what I truly want or need. And so for me, the journaling helps that. And then also just the practical. I'm going to go to the park now and I'm going to go make a friend. They say that if you need a friend, be a friend. So that happened for me. And I just started making friends that way and then had that extra feedback, on those days that it's hard because, like Emily said, every single mom has messed it up. We've all had our moments. And the of being able to be with other moms who are able to say, and I kind of go into this at different stages of the book too, but other moms who are able to say, hey, I messed up too, is so refreshing because as mothers, what we most don't want to do is mess up our children, right? Like as a mom, you innately, you want to do the best that you can. The one thing I don't want to mess up is my kids, And so by being able to be with other moms who are in the thick of it and who can also say, well, I just really screwed up today. Like I just, and to have a camaraderie of we're in this together. I'll pray for you. You pray for me. It takes so much of that guilt off and that performance and the expectation of if I do one thing wrong today, I'm going to screw up my kid's life forever. It's the camaraderie of we're all figuring it out, and there's so much grace in the process, and there's so much truth in the process too. So having those friends who say they messed up, but who can also push you to be better instead of pushing you to be worse. I feel like I tried to cover that in pages of the book too, because it is hard. It's very hard, and we need people to be able to be honest with and to walk through repentance and accountability with. But also, we need friends that are going to hold our hands, but also lift us up, not be like, hold our hands and be like, it's okay. And kind of like, make fun of it or kind of turn the mothering curve towards a sarcastic tone towards our kids or a sarcastic tone towards mothering, because it really is a gift, even though it's a challenging gift, but it's a gift.
Yes, 100%. Emily, what about you? What do you do when you start feeling those doubts of faith?
Well, for me, I always go back to the times where I had the doubt, but then hindsight always is better, right? Because you see that God worked. So I go back to that because when I was teaching, I really did feel like I was doing what God wanted me to do because I worked with kids that had learning issues. I was their advocate. I very much felt like it was a ministry and that I was in the trenches with them. Like I'm still tight with a lot of the families because I was like one-on-one with these kids. I was walking them through all this stuff. But the last 2 years I was there, it was like the toughest 2 years because I got promoted, which seems like a great thing, but I was the director of the program. And so instead of me working with the kids and being their advocate, I was managing other adults. I was the one giving the bad news to parents like, hey, I think your child may have a learning disability and you need to go pay thousands of dollars for testing. And then people are crying in my office every day. And it was very difficult. And I lost all joy. I can't even tell you, everything that I had loved about that, the ministry aspect of it. And I was still ministering, but it just was it was sucking the soul. And so I had a real crisis of faith because I was like, this is what I thought I was supposed to do. I really, even though there were a lot of circumstances in that job that I did not enjoy or like, the actual ministry to these students and their families was very dear to me. And I did feel like it. And so I just was like, I think I have to, and my husband was very encouraging, I think you need to quit. And I didn't have a backup plan. I had some friends that said, well, you can come tutor with me or you can come do this. But Matt thankfully was just I think this is it's not good. You're not in a good place. And it was very much a crisis of faith because I felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I was doing God's work and I was ministering to these kids. And I was literally just poured my heart and soul. There was no painting or crafting or creating. It was all about these kids and their families. And so to just be well, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then literally quit the job, took an art class with friends the next couple of weeks. And then it's been uphill with this, downhill, I guess, I don't know, what would it be? But anyway, it's been all steamrolling along and growing. And I'm so fulfilled in this and I'm ministering with this. My art makes people happy. I've painted for people who have lost a loved one to celebrate events. You think it's just painting, but it's more than that. And so I've been able to minister I'm actually working on something for Covenant right now. I mean, it's like, to be able to use that gift. And so I tend to, when I have these moments of crisis or doubt, I tend to look back into the points in my life where like it's more than I could have asked or imagined, right? Like when I left that job, this is not what I saw happening. And it was better, bigger, all that stuff. And I also always go back to my favorite verse is in Isaiah, and it's do not dwell on the past, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am a new thing. And so I'm always like, that has like been my go-to verse forever, because I mean, we've had our house burn, we've had a house hit by a tornado, we've had a house flood, we've like had all this stuff, and it's just like you can let that stuff dominate you, or you can be like, but look where we are now, and we wouldn't be here had not these things. And so I think there's a lot like that hindsight is such a thing for me. And I've had that even in the art world. I've had some situations where I'm like, this isn't working anymore, but I feel like I owe this person something, or if not for this person, I would have this, but it's not a God giving, love giving, relationship anymore. And you have to move on. And then you see that God opens up other things that you would, if you had not left that. And I love having those examples because it's been super helpful, because my daughter's 13 now, and I can talk to her about real life stuff like this. And she knows some of it because she actually has had to, when she was my sidekick and with me all the time, she had to go with me to talk to people about hard things. I couldn't leave her behind. And so she's had to hear me go and apologize or be sad because a collection I did that I worked really hard with never took off, and they scrapped it. And it was like, hours of my life, weeks of my life, then it didn't do it. So I think that for me, it's that hindsight and that verse, and being able to, like, when I'm in the thick of it, it's not always, I don't see that, but I usually can see it on the other side. And then I can pull from that well as well, to say, but I love giving real life examples to my daughter about things, like when things don't go well for her, I can say, but look where I am now. I wasn't always like that,
Yeah. I think there is no greater power than a testimony, whether it's to your kid, whether it's to people, you don't even know. I think that's super powerful, as is, meeting with other moms. I was just writing in my morning reflection today, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with them. Matthew 18:20. I'm horrible with the numbers. I had to look that up, but I think, there's such power and truth in the Bible, and you do see it come to life in your own life. So you guys are both testaments to that. I want to talk about the last highlight in this book. I mean, there's so many great highlights in the book, but the last one that really struck out to me is self-care. Another word that we hear a lot in motherhood, just like mom guilt, just like mom failures. But self-care, I think the approach is slightly different in the book. Sarah, you encourage us to remember the joys of our own childhood and identity, remember the ease of freedom and a carefree existence, which will fuel us to love and give more abundantly. So this idea of filling ourselves up so then we can pour out to our loved ones. But looking back at our childhood, looking back at pre-kids, maybe where your life was your own, so to speak, I think is a powerful practice. But I want to get both of your perspectives on how you do that in a way where you don't fall into resentment, or you don't fall into unhealthy escapism where you look back and you're like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have kids, or I miss that life, which, it's fine to feel and think. I think that a lot, but we don't want to fall into a place where we're looking at motherhood in a negative way, or why did I have kids? Why did I make this decision? So how have you guys practiced self-care and avoided falling into that kind of trap?
That is an amazing question. And I think that's a topic, gosh, if we had a whole nother podcast, we could completely expound upon, because I feel like as mothers, that's what during this season, that's what we're really trying to navigate through, because it is, you have your whole life going in one direction where primarily you are just responsible for you. And so you get to make those avenues to take care of yourself or to do the things that you'd like to do. You know, you have all of that. But then when a baby comes, I mean, it's within a day that everything completely switches, and it does feel like whiplash. Like I just remember the first week of having, you know, a baby, I honestly thought to myself, I'm never going to sleep again. Like I literally in my for the rest of my life, I'm going to be woken up every 2 hours, you know, like, and so there was just this trigger of like, oh my goodness, which is, I feel like, you know, trauma in all reality, not to make light or heavy of it, but it is, you know, it is traumatic to think everything has just switched. And now my whole life feels like taking care of somebody else. So figuring out how to purposely make avenues for myself was really, really important, because for us, we'd been married for about 6 years. We weren't trying to get pregnant, but we weren't not trying to get pregnant. We were just kind of like letting things roll. And then we got pregnant with the first, and then boom, 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 second, third, you know, it was just like really fast after that. So there was a good chunk of, I think, 6.5 years where I was either pregnant, nursing, or pregnant and nursing. And so, I mean, during that season, I just felt like, oh my goodness, where have I gone? You know, like where I, as a person, I mean, even my body, like I couldn't move my body as much to even go for a walk or exercise. Or if I did, I was still pushing the stroller. So it just felt very heavy. And I feel like a lot of moms are still trying to figure out, me included, how do we express ourselves as people, as women, as I'm just Sarah, express myself in ways that I love and have enjoyed doing my whole life, but also be responsible where there are certain seasons where, hey, right now, that's not a reality of something I can do, because I am responsible for other human beings and for care and their growth. And, you know, as a mother, your commitment is obviously, you know, to your family and to your children to take care of them. So it's like this very, I don't want to say clustered, though sometimes I feel like it can feel clustered, season of expression and care and also continual movement, I think for me, it was the times where if I stopped moving for too long, you need to stop to rest. But if you stop moving for too long, you can get stuck. And then I feel like it can feel very out of balance. But if I could continually do those small things like journal or have that cup of coffee by myself or try to get out for a walk, you know, very simple, cheap things, not big, extravagant things, but those simple things of self-care that can make such a huge difference. Because I think with the world of social media, you know, that all started happening when I was having my kids, my babies too. You feel like, oh my gosh, everybody's out living these glamorous lives, and I have baby diarrhea on my shirt and I'm leaking milk, and you know, like I'm not living that kind of life, you know, or they're all getting to chase hopes and dreams and all of these things. And that's not where where I am at the season. And even when I thought, oh, my kids are going to go back to, like, they're going to go to school now, like they were doing preschool and that kind of thing. And then we felt like God asked us to bring them home. I was kind of like, at first, oh my gosh, like I thought I was going to get to go to lunch with a friend while they were all at school. Like those were the little things that I was, thinking I could do. And then it was another deeper layer of surrender for me, and me understanding during that season that Jesus was going to provide for me. That was, I think, a faith lesson for me. And now that we don't stay in that season forever, but there was definitely some time where he just did a much deeper work in me, because I did say yes to walking that place with him. But then now, several years later, I find that, wow, during COVID, all these kids were in and out of school, or school was closed, or we didn't know what was going on. And here we were already homeschooling, and we're still in our little bubble during that whole time. So it actually ended up providing some ease for me in the sense of caring for myself, because I didn't have additional stressors that I thought nobody anticipated COVID, that, that happened for other moms. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's give and take in different ways. And I think that there's seasons for everything. Just like there's seasons for us for homeschooling, there's seasons for tutorial. There's definitely a chance that our kids would go back to school. And so it's just keep moving. Don't stop, keep moving forward and learning and growing and being grateful and practicing gratitude, because there's a lot for moms to figure out, I feel like, because for husbands, it's not in their bodies. It's not, it's portions of their day, but sometimes for moms, it can be, especially at that beginning stage, all day. So there's just a lot in our, I don't know what you want to say, in our capacity of things to figure out. So as long as you just kind of keep making that balanced forward movement, I think for me, that's what's been the most helpful and refreshing. And now that I'm feeling well, I can share with other moms and I can tell them, hey, guess what? It will stop. It will end. You will get to exercise again. It's not going to be forever. Don't feel hopeless. Don't feel like the world's closing in. Just keep moving, and you'll look at this and realize how much those moments really do matter and how precious they are.
Yes, yes, beautiful. I read a I read a quote. I forgot where it was from, probably some social media channel. It was during the summer a few years ago. And they said, hey, moms in your 30s with the little kids, you're chasing after little kids, making sure, they're not drowning. You're looking over at the moms in their 40s who are just relaxing and getting their tan on. And she said, you'll get there. It will come. So yeah, seasons change. I think we have to be present, and being, happy and grateful for what you have, I think is such a key part of self-care. Emily, what about you? How do you practice self-care and fulfill yourself?
So I think just because I have this art gig that's so flexible and in my home and I can kind of set my hours, I think I'm kind of in a unique position with that. But, we were married 15 years before, we had kids, and that was, sometimes people don't get it, but that was kind of by choice. We weren't not trying, but we weren't trying, it was just kind of like, we had a very full travel life, just the two of us. And so it was a huge change, to at 36. So first of all, I'm not as young, but it was such a God thing that he gave me this art. I don't think I could have done what I'm doing with Sophie now had I still been teaching full time. But even when I was teaching full time, I still was, until those last 2 years that were so hard, I was still doing creative things on the side because I knew that I needed that for myself. Like I'd always been somebody who could spend hours in my room making things for a dollhouse or drawing little tiny books. Or I've tried I thought I was going to be a milliner for a while, like make hats. Like I have tried everything. I had an antique booth at an antique mall for a while where I would just go and get stuff and I'd paint it and fix it up, and did that for several years. Like I've always had like, so I think I always had recognized in myself that I needed, that was my thing. I think being creative, and before the art thing, it was just being more crafty because I didn't think that art was an option for me because I had never studied it. But so I was always had some kind of craft outlet or some kind of creative thing. And also reading. I'm a huge reader. Having that time to just read books, go to bookstores, go to libraries, that very much nourishes me. And so I think though, because I had already, I had started painting, and it took off just as I was pregnant, and as I was, growing her inside me, I was growing this business. I mean, she was the very first little art show I did, which was tiny, was like just a little like local thing, like with a lot of people from my church and stuff. And I'm pregnant, and I'm selling stuff, and people still have that art, which is so funny. And then, so she's been with me this whole time. So I've somehow I've got that outlet because I've got, they've just grown up together, honestly. But I mean, as the business grew bigger and the demands on my time and the think, well, what I could do with it if I had this, and this, I think that's where maybe I get a little bit of resentment because I see other friends that their kids are grown, or got a staff or whatever, and they are a brand and they've got all this. And I was like, well, I could do this and I could do this and I could grow my, and like, that's where I think my resentment comes in now is like, is she holding me back from all this? Like this last year, I barely painted because lots of things happened, like construction and my dad got sick, but also she needed me more. Like, I mean, this is like her social life is like, I mean, it's crazy. And her sports and like I needed to be like 100% available on the weekends and after school. And even during school, I felt like I was more involved. But I also still can come down here in my studio at night when she's kind of settled or whatever, and at least like slap a little bit of paint around or open a book and read it. And at the same time, I think because I waited so long to have children, and I think I had some unrealistic ideas of what that was going to mean for me to have a child. What I also realized that helps me not be resentful is all the wonderful things she's brought, because if I hadn't had her, I wouldn't have had a bunch of other things. I mean, I have some of the best friends that I like literally just fill my cup all the time. And I would never have known them had I not had her, or just opportunities with travel or with working in her school, just like where we live, even like a lot of those things would not, there's so many good things that have come from having her and just enjoying her. And so I have to kind of remind myself of that too. Like when I start thinking I could have this huge brand and I could be like on all these textiles and I could like, and I start looking at my friends that are super like successful in their businesses and have grown them and they've got this many followers and their website can do all these things. And I think, and I'm like, I can barely sometimes get like down to the studio for the day. So I think it's just like, okay, I only have her for so long. If it's meant to be that I can do that down the road, I've already got plenty to do. And I am fulfilled through art and reading and stuff. And I do have, for the most part, I do get to indulge in that because it's a flexible schedule for me. So, but I mean, like if I let myself compare myself to some of my other artist friends that either don't have kids or have kids that are older and driving and stuff like that, like I can really beat myself up about not being productive and not being on that trajectory. And that's when I have to step back and be like, I'm where I'm supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then an opportunity like this book comes along that I didn't even like go after. You know what I mean? Like that. So that's where I feel like God is faithful. Listen, just I'm going to use your gift. I'm going to do it. You don't have to like neglect your family to make your gift matter. I'm going to provide the opportunities, and he's done that at literally every step along the way. So once again, hindsight is always a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's so important to share too, about how you said you don't have to neglect your family in order to feel fulfilled personally. That was always my thing, which is so funny about this book because my husband works in publishing, and when I was writing this, like just journaling and doodling it, and then I put it into a little self-published things, kind of like what Emily was saying about the little art show that she did with just like her friends and church friends or whatever. I did the same thing with this book the first time around, just because I felt like I needed a little creative outlet. And then all of a sudden a publisher asked to pick it up. And my husband, being in publishing, said, "Sir, that does not happen." He said, most people who are writers are trying so hard to build the platform, build the followers, do all of these things in order for a publisher to even bat an eye at their work. And here you are just at home taking stuff out of your childhood, not even a writer or having an ambition to be one. And you're just doing what God's asked you to do to be faithful to your family. And then it just gets picked up, picked up. And then I would say, even for Emily and I, it's just moving right along. I feel like every opportunity just opens. We do one thing and then the next opportunity opens. And so we go through that door and then another door opens and we go. And the beautiful thing I feel especially about this piece is that they call it an evergreen title, in the sense that motherhood is not going away. So it's not a trendy book in the sense of like, this will only be popular for 6 months. So you have to write it when it's going to be big and put all your energy and time there. And, but motherhood is a lifelong journey, and there's always going to be mothers, and we are mothers. And so as much as it is a fun part of our career, we get to like do the work with everybody else at the same time because we're going to be mothers forever. So I just think that that's a really important piece to share because with the world the way it is, it does feel like, well, if you want to do X, Y, and Z, or if you want to have a fulfilling life, then you have to do all of these overwhelming steps and you're not going to be there for your family. But it's actually exactly opposite, that God sees you and that in the midst of that, he'll make a way for what he wants for your life and that we don't ever have to neglect ourselves, or that's not God's heart for us, that we're neglected or that we neglect our family, but he takes care of us all the way through. And so, I mean, this book has been a testament to that in my life for sure.
Yeah, I think you both nailed it on the head. If there's one thing that I could take away from the book, it's that. And the fact that, I want to say it as well. It's not an either or. I think everyone has heard through this conversation today that God has made a way towards bigger, better, and greater things than we ever imagined when we felt especially unequipped. And so I think that's so important. I want to make sure every single mom hears that today. And I think both of you already spoke about what you want moms to take away from this book, but is there anything else you want moms to take away?
I hope that they enjoy their motherhood. That's my biggest hope for this book is that motherhood is hard work and there's a big learning curve and there's lots of ins and outs, but that it's so special. And I'm really grateful, even though homeschooling has been a new learning journey for me, it has been so sweet. And I feel like through this book and through taking care of myself just practically with journaling and things like that, I feel like I really do enjoy my kids. And I really, when they get married someday and move on to have their own families, absolutely I'm going to miss them and, go through all that transition. But when I look back, I'm going to be so happy with knowing I was with them in so many different processes of their life. And whether it was good or bad, or we had a struggle one day or not, there was joy there. So I hope that that's what moms can take away from this, that there really is so much to be gained in being a mother and learning how to be a mother.
I would definitely echo that, but just that encouragement that like literally like nobody's getting it right. Everybody's path looks completely different. And if you mess up one day, you get a new day, you get a new moment. And, the things that you're focused on, your kids are going to, they have, you think you're going to scar them forever, but you're not. They are going to forget. And just like, just to fill your cup with beautiful things like the art and the words and stuff like that, so that you can fill your cup so that you have that in your toolbox when you're dealing with your kids. But encouragement and joy, I think, are definitely the themes there.
Awesome. Well, everyone listening, the book is called 40 Days to a Joyful Motherhood. I know it's available on Amazon. It's available on Dexterity Books. Anywhere else where moms can find it?
Barnes and Noble. Where else?
Christianbook.com. And a lot of little indie bookstores too. There's been a lot of places that, we've just been walking by or whatever, and all of a sudden, hey, my book's in there.
That's awesome.
So just keep your eye open for the cute little teal cover with all the beautiful flowers, because I feel like it's popping up all different kinds of places.
Awesome. It is a beautiful book. We're going to give a few copies away as well. So everyone look at the show notes for details on that. And last question for both of you. Where can moms go to learn more about you and connect?
My website is thetableandbath.com. I've got just a bunch of different creative things on there. My husband will, if you're local, sometimes he makes farmhouse tables. So that's where the name comes. And I love essential oils and bath bombs and things like that. You can also go to, I'm growing my Instagram at this time, The Table and Bath on Instagram, or you can just type in Sarah Humphrey and it will pop up there.
Awesome.
So I have a website. It's littleestudio.com. And so it's LITTLE estudio.com. If you forget that E, it's like, I was like, maybe I should have thought through that. Like, cause if you just put Little Studio, you won't find me, but it's Little E Studio. And then I'm also Little E Studio on Instagram. And I would say my Instagram presence is probably where I spend most of my time. I'm not on Facebook as much, but those are the two places where you can see my original work and find out where my licensed products and other things I'm working on can be sold. So yeah, those are the two big places.
Amazing. Well, Sarah and Emily, this has been such a pleasure to have this conversation. Thank you for making the time, and thank you for writing and illustrating the book.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
All right, friend, that was Sarah Humphrey and Emily Little of 40 Days to a Joyful Motherhood. And don't forget, we are giving away 2 copies of that gorgeous book. So to go enter, go to joyful.momsgrabcoffee.com. That's joyful.momsgrabcoffee.com. Coming up next week, we're talking children's programming with Katie Miller of Sight and Sound Theaters. I think many of us have questioned what the heck is going on with children's programming, with children's entertainment. Is anything safe for my kids anymore? That's what we're going to dive into, and Katie's going to share some of the things that she does with her kids in her household, and also what she's seeing as an entertainment industry veteran. Despite the questionable and dark things that you might be seeing coming out on various streaming platforms or entertainment channels, there is also so much hope to be found and so much good that's happening, even in Hollywood. So follow Mom's Grab Coffee wherever you're listening, and also share the show with a friend. All right, friend, have an amazing, hope-filled week, and I'll catch you again next week for a cup of coffee with a side of faith, wisdom, and hope.